Hey guys, Steven here. I am back with another deck profile. I am not presenting a regional topping deck, unfortunately. I only got 10th. I went 7-2 at Toronto with this deck, but I decided to do a deck profile anyways because I think the theory behind this is a bit different and I haven't seen anyone talk about it, and I was pretty happy with how the deck performed. So I decided to play Salad, but a little bit different theory is I decided to play Big Salad, which was 60 cards. I think that part of this is, the meme of I want to play Big Salad, which is a funny name, especially if you're a Seinfeld fan. But the other part of it was that I think this is one of those decks that can comfortably go over 40. You have more than enough starters to justify playing more cards. You're not going to sacrifice much consistency, and you're going to avoid drawing all those subpar cards. It's also a toolbox deck, so you want to play a lot of specific cards that are only good in the odd scenario, but you don't want to draw them either, and just upping your deck count solves that issue. It's very similar to kind of the theory of people playing 50 card branded. So although I think that 60 card was a bit of a meme, I think that playing this deck at 50 or 55 is completely reasonable, and it would be what I would try going forward with this deck. And I think that if you are a style fan, then you should test out this kind of theory behind the deck, because I was very happy with the consistency of the hands, just in terms of like the power level, and it felt a lot better than drawing a lot of your subpar draws every other hand. So getting to the list, like I said, you have enough starters to mitigate the fact that you're playing 60. So you have 18 starters, so you play 3 Debug, 3 Fire. I think even if you're playing 40 or lower deck count, you should still be playing one of this. One of the issues the deck has is that if you are resolving Gazelle already and then you make Stalio, you're not getting much more value off Stalio. You need another card that actually gives you value, and Fire is. So you should always have this in your deck, at least a 1-up as a Fire target. You max out both of these because you need every starter you can in 60. Debug is actually the better combo. It lets you get to the Ash combo, which lets you go Horse Prince in the Ash, get that back, as well as Raging Phoenix to search the trap. But this is just a solid name, so Syndra is slightly better with the rest of your deck and into the engine cards. But you max out both of them regardless. The other names: 3 Gazelle, 3 Circle, 3 Mining, and then 3 Terratop for Talking Tomborg, because you do have Stalio as a starter as well. And the nice thing about these starters is, other than these two, which are both normals that conflict, they all synergize well because they all get you different things. Like if I go summon Talking Tomborg, make Stalio, or even if they stop Talking Tomborg, I just have a body on board and I haven't wasted my normal, and I can just continue with my other starters. And every one of these starters feels good to pair up, other than the double normals, and so it feels really nice because you're not clogging. It's just you slam down a starter, they slam down a hand trap, you slam down another starter, and it feels good because this deck has a lot of gas. If you just keep slamming down starters, you're in a good position. At some point, you can also just Link Climb to push through the barrage of hand traps that are coming at you. You have 18 starters in 60, which is about 12 in 40, would be the equivalency, which is a bit low. If you get this deck down to 50, which I'll talk about in a bit, you have what would be the equivalency of 15 and 40, which is very good. So somewhere in the low 50s, I think, is a completely reasonable deck count for this deck. Other style cards: 3 Spinny, 3 Weasel. I think these cards are very good still, but they are a bit lower on value. They're not 1-card starters. They're fine to draw in conjunction with any of these, but when you're just drawing hands of these, they feel a bit worse. Going forward, I'd probably cut down one of each of these if you're one to not play 60 card. But they are very good in their own right. This is a good discard fodder. I think you do need discard fodder, or even sometimes just an extra normal that's decent, because if you're normaling like Gazelle, it's not as good as your normal Spinny, because this is at least 2 bodies. And Weasel is an insane card because it lets you beat Nib. How you beat Nib is you just make Princess on your 5th summon, and then anytime they nib after that, you can just summon the Weasel, link it off, and then it'll trigger Weasel's effect to summon an extra deck monster to your opponent's field. And then, since the monster summoned to your opponent's field, then you can immediately trigger Princess, and then revive the Princess, protect your guy, or if Raging Phoenix is already in the grave, revive the Raging Phoenix, and you get back to your relinks Raging Phoenix like that. So very important card for the deck. Maxing them out felt fine. It's just the fact that I wanted to see stars more is why I would cut them down. And the other toolbox of cards: 1 Foxy, 1 Jack, and 1 Mirror. So you probably won't play all of these in the standard style, but it's nice. This card was exceptional throughout the weekend. Anything this card's added from your deck to your hand, you can special summon it, or you can discard a style card. If this card's in your hand, special summon it. So nice things, if you have them like Jack and Circle, then the Jack's in second in your hand, you can just add the Mirror and discard it, as well as the fact that you just need ways of sticking bodies on the board, because a lot of your extenders require that. And so if you get like Shotgun Interrupted just to keep the bodies off board, they get punished because of this card. Jack's is just a solid card, and Foxy I think is fine as a 1-up. There are a lot of hands where I will just discard this, and then it's good in the grind game, the clear back row, especially versus Runic decks, which I managed to play 2 of somehow this weekend. And then other style cards: 1 Sanctuary, 1 Will, double Roar, and 1 Rage. I only used Sanctuary once this weekend, which I think is still below average, and so like I shouldn't use that as justification to play a high deck count, but it is nice just drawing this less than the standard 40. I decided to play 2 Roar because I don't ever want to banish both these off Desires. And it's also just really good when you're trading hand traps. If I get to Roar and just set this first turn, it's really hard for decks to play through it. I can just slip this on their summon, and a lot of times it'll stop. It's super good for Snake Eye, because if they go Ash and you just hit it with Roar, which alone isn't too much of an extension. If your grade's loaded, they can do Heater Lines, but it's still significantly worse by itself. And the fact that even if you get hand trapped to death, you can just relink the Balinks into get this back for another hard interruption is really good. I think Will's really solid as well. There's games where you can just search this off the Raging Phoenix once it's relinked, and then revive 4, push for game shots like that. It's also a fine draw by itself, and again, you're playing a larger deck count, you can play more toolbox-esque cards. And the other other engine card with 3 Desires. This card felt fine all weekend. There was never a point where I really hated it. You don't play this in 40 naturally because you can't afford the banish, but in 60 it's much more fun. And I think when you're just throwing hand traps at each other, it feels really good because you're just getting +1, whether it's an extra starter or engine or card or a hand trap. It feels really good regardless. And you're still playing Sal. You still have a lot of tech cards. So hand traps, I play 3 Ash, 3 Veiler, 3 more, or not more than 3 Ogre, 3 Nib, and 3 Imperm. You can definitely play more hand traps than this. I have other tech cards still that I chose not to play hand traps just because I wanted a bit more diversity into other boards and other decks. Against Voiceless, I'd rather just have more breakers than hand traps. Same with like Melodious. But if you want to play more hand traps, you still can. You still have these tech cards here that you can cut out. I think these are standard ones. Nib was really underwhelming for this weekend. I think the only thing it's really super solid against is the Snake Eye deck. But the issue is the format's still going to kind of diverse. It's awful versus Tempai, which is a very scary deck. It's awful versus Melodious. It's bad versus Voiceless. And like, I just don't think that going forward, I will main this, or at least consider not maining this if it doesn't have, you know, some other upside with it. Just because it really is only good versus Snake Eye. And even then, you still need to pair it. So something like Bell may trade better into the other decks, or you can just play more breakers up. But that's personal preference of whether you want to choose to main Nib or whatever hand traps you have. If you're concerned about having a low hand trap count in 60 and worried about getting too far down the rabbit hole with, you know, how low impact the hand traps are, you still have Morons to play. That's 18. That's 12 in 40 with the equivalents, and so it's, you know, still a completely reasonable amount. And the other tech cards I decided to play was 3 Talents because traps are everywhere. It's also just fine going second. This deck has gives a lot of gas. If you start playing, you can push through boards and you can clear them quite easily. So this isn't like a weak engine deck. I would consider it. The engine is fairly strong. It's not super strong. It's not Snake Eyes, but it's good enough to justify playing this card. 3 droplets. This card is really insane deck. I think this card is really good overall in the format against any of the decks that you don't want hand traps against, so like Voiceless or Melodious, some of the fusion decks even. This card is just insane against, and the discard's often very free. You have Circle's quick play, and a lot of your discard fodder is completely fine. And then other one, I was 1 Call by, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Lively. I think this is kind of where you see me pushing some less than stellar cards in the list just to play at 60. All these cards can obviously be very good, but I think these can be relegated more to the side for shifter decks and for decks where I've actually hits. I play Thrust in the side. Thrust is usually in the list in the main deck, but I decided to just keep this in the main deck when I cut Thrust to the side. Overall, these cards are pretty cuttable, as well as the 1 Spinny and 1 Weasel. And then you can decide to swap up your non-engine cards a little bit to get this down closer to 50, and I think the deck will be a bit more concise and feel really solid. But overall, I'm still happy with the deck. Both my losses were just fusion decks that I think pushed through my hand traps really effectively, and that's, I think, less of a reflection of the deck and more just a reflection of me losing die rolls to fusion decks. But the deck overall felt really good, especially playing into other kind of fair decks like Ubel, Voiceless, etc. Extra deck, we say play 3 Veilings, double Wolf. You don't need 3 Wolf anymore. You do need to keep an eye on managing this correctly, because you do need to add back a lot of times. This is also where the will comes up, because a lot of times if you go through the first turn, you'll will it back and then relink it like that. There also are lines where you can just, you know, grab your engine piece back first turn just for follow-up. That doesn't come up as much. Sometimes you just skip over it. Like I said when I was talking about Weasel, is a lot of times you want to make this on your 5th summon if you have Weasel, so you're completely immune to Nib. If you're not completely immune to Nib and you're not choosing not to play around it, then Wolf's completely visible. 1 Princess, this card's like the best salad card. It's better in this deck than it is in Snake Eyes, just because you have more synergy with Weasel putting cards on your opponent's board, and so you can trigger it yourself. And then 3 Raging Phoenix. This card's insane in Snake Eye. It's even better in this deck. You want to max out on them. First turn, you always just go 1 Raging Phoenix into second one, get any search for you want. You have Princess in the grave, and then just the grind game with these cards is insane, because if you have one, your engine just gets going completely again on the next turn, where you can just relink it immediately, get a search for will, and you can also chain block if you have Rage in the grave, because then they can't choose to Ash or hard negate it, or sorry, Roar. You can't Ash or choose to hard negate it, and so you immediately get will and just push. And I think the fun with this deck is that it does grind really well, and grinds a bit better than Snake Eyes. Your follow-up's obviously worse, but if you're getting into a longer grind game, it feels a bit better. Other cards, One Horse Prince. I'll show the combo at the end. This is used to search Ash. The reason I think you play this is because, one, it's a 1-card combo for debug, so it is something that comes up a bunch. The other thing is, if you're playing a deck like Veranda or Flu, where you know they're on breakers, you want to have more ways of getting engine pieces. And I think this is one of the problems with the decks, is that all the cards let you link climb well and help you get to the end board, but if you're not getting hand trapped, you have a bit of redundancy, and so just having another way to get interruptions that aren't dependent on any of the salad cards is good. One here for link climbing for obvious reasons. One Salio, which comes up with a Terror Top as well as other lines. You don't always have to go into this. Like I said, you want to go Princess a lot of times on your fifth summon just to play around. Yep. And then last 3 6 spots, 1 Phoenix, 1 SP, and 1 Zelantis. Yes, you have some cards that lock you into fires, but a lot of times people will shotgun negates on them, or you just don't draw them. And so I think these cards are still fine. I used both these once. I think one's cuttable. The other card I want to consider is Cyber's Wicked, which is linked to that lets you search for Weasel when it's monster summoned to zone points to. So it lets you play through and hand trap more effectively. You can consider cutting one of these. I don't know which one I would consider yet. Phoenix is MVP of these 3 at least. It's just super easy to make, and you're just pitching dead cards for draws, which feels really good. And then side deck, Triple Belt. Only traditional hand trap. This card is insane. Anytime I drew it, it's very good versus Genius decks. It's nice that it hits Ostinetto too, because Ostinetto's effect lets you revive from the grave during the end phase, and so you can use this just as an Ash Blossom versus that card, which is very nice. Chris is Voiceless. I think it's solid card overall. I would consider putting this in the main. Maybe Crow's better versus Tempai, because the field spell stops this when they try reviving in main phase, and Crow doesn't get interactive with the field spell, but I think it's good against other decks, so at least consider it. And then, like I've been doing the entire format, Breakers in my side, because there's a lot of decks you don't want hand traps in against, and you need Breakers just to have a much better matchup. So 3 Dark Ruler, the Duster package, 2 Lightning Storm, 3 Thrust, and 1 Change of Heart. All these cards are solid. The matchups where I play that I don't want hand traps, so Ubel, Flu, Voiceless, these all felt very amazing. I think you should have at least Dark Rules and this Duster and the Lightning Storm in your side deck, or some form of the back row removal with Dark Rule. People say this card's bad, and yes, it's bad versus Snake Eye, but against everything else, it just feels so amazing. And all the decks that are good right now are good because they're good at playing into hand traps, and everyone's on hand traps. And so when you have breakers and you expect this decks like Voiceless and Melodious in the side, you get rewarded, and your game 2 and 3 become a lot easier. And last 2 cards are just go first cards, 1 Dimensional Barrier and 1 DG. The idea was playing these for thrust, to obviously thrust into them. I don't think that's that good, because if you get hand trapped to death, I don't want to have a thrust in my hand to keep, like, to set one of these. So I may just play more high value cards and not put the thrust since going first. I think considering playing the 3rd counter trap it in the side is reasonable, or anti-spell I think is also reasonable. But either of those is, what you choose as you go first card is your decision. Either of those is fine. So we're all very happy with the deck. The last thing I'll show you is the debug combo. And this is kind of your max combo. Every other 1-card combo, or a lot of your 2-card combos are similar to this. And so this is kind of just showing the tricks of the deck. So you start with debug effective search. You're going to have your Gazelle. You're going to link this away for the Balinks. Balinks is going to search. Now, of course, you cannot use Gazelle here because debug is not a solid card. And so what you're going to do is have to relink, which back in the day would have been bad because you waste your relink, but fortunately, because of new cards, it's not as bad. Trigger Gazelle, Gazelle effect, send the Spinny, revive the Spinny, Stalio, Stalio effect. Then you're going to get the Fire, which is why you play this, because now the Stalio is getting you 1 card, which is getting you another card, so you get more value off the Stalio. Grab one of your Weasels. You're going to make Princess here. Some Princess revive 1 to level 3, so revive Spinning in this case. Special to Weasel. Weasel is a tuner, so you can sync that off nicely. Horse Prince effect to summon the Ash, and now the Ash is in the grave for it to be added back off Wolf. So relink for Raging the Phoenix. Grab your Wolf, and now because you summoned a Style monster, you can use Weasel effect in the grave to put this on the bottom of your deck. You get a random draw, and then you special summon the monster to your opponent's field. And now, since monster summoned to the other field, you can trigger Princess, and you can also trigger Wolf. So chain 1 Wolf, chain 2 Princess, or vice versa. Add back the Ash, and you have the Ash in your hand. This gets popped, this gets popped. Since the fire monster was destroyed, you special summon your Raging Phoenix back. You want to let the Wolf get popped, because this way the Raging Phoenix is on board. Now you have 3+1, which gets you another Raging Phoenix. So even though you didn't use Sanctuary relink, you get the Raging Phoenix relink anyways, effective search. For whichever style card you want, which is generally your counter trap. And so your 1-card combo is the counter trap plus Ash, as well as a very large amount of follow-up in the grave in the form of Spinny, Princess as an interruption, as well as the Radiant Phoenix to loop itself with the other one. So that's kind of the max board. You don't always have to go for that. You need to respect hand traps, and a lot of times in this format you'll be getting hand trapped to death anyways. but that is kind of the standard end board if you go on Undisrupted, which is nice. Overall, very happy with how the deck performed, and I think it's at least something to consider. And I think that, like I said, if you're a style play, you should consider upping your deck count just to have less of those redundant hands, less multiples, be able to play Desires, as well as avoid drawing Sanctuary as much as you do. Hope you guys enjoy the profile. Let me know if you guys want regional profiles like this that aren't tops. If it's something interesting like this, I'll plan to do it. But if you want more general ones, let me know in the comments. Thanks. Have a good day.